Welcome to a special edition of the DFS Jags Fantasy Football Stream 2021 NFC win totals, where we will be going team by team in each division, looking at the Vegas win totals and telling you whether to bet the over or the under. I am Tony Altieri, and unfortunately for you, I have drawn the short straw, which means I will be handling the hosting duties tonight. But luckily, we have a panel of battle-tested, data-driven NFL experts here to set the record straight. Joining us tonight from the Fantasy Football Stream, the federal government's own lead data scientist, Mr. Chris Caldwell. Chris, what's going on, man?
Chillin', Tony. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And of course, my co-host from the rarely watched PGA Golf Show, the doctor of dental sciences himself, Dr. Riku Mukherjee. Rick, what's up, man?
Hey, man, 24 hours till football. How excited are we?
I know, and you and Chris both have a big trip coming up, man. You guys are going to be out in Vegas celebrating the Ravens 2021 season.
Yeah, we're both heading down Friday. We're all pumped and ready to go for Monday Night Football. Gonna get a couple of drinks in us. I'm gonna play a little golf. We're gonna party a little bit, and then hopefully bring home a Ravens win.
So Rick, I'm wearing my my motto for the trip. If you can't be good, be careful. I know we can't be good, so we better be careful.
My only suggestion to both of you guys is when you duct tape the yellow pages to your body, so that way when you get stabbed, it doesn't actually puncture an artery. Just make sure you go all the way around your bodies. So that's one thing I would say. Before we get into particulars, I did want to remind all of you scoring at home or watching by yourselves to comment, subscribe to the Nickel City Mafia channel. We have hours and hours of mediocre and subpar content that you can kind of pour into and critique. We love negative feedback, so be sure to sub and comment. In addition to that, we're planning a huge giveaway, as Rick's boy Trump would say. So hit the notification button so that way you'll know when and where that will be happening. So that way you can win whatever it is we're going to give away. I don't know. Mike hasn't made up his mind yet, but that announcement will be coming soon. All right. I guess enough foreplay. Let's go balls deep into the NFC. And let's start with arguably the worst division in football last year, the NFC East. Headlining division this year is the Dallas Cowboys. Vegas has the over-under at 9 wins this year. It's a team that won 6 last year. They are getting Dak Prescott back, allegedly. Other than that, there isn't a lot to say. And we lead off with, I guess, an over and under in contention. Rick, you like the under. Chris, you and I both like the over. So, Rick, tell us why we're wrong and you're right.
I think this is one of those divisions just like last year where I just think it's just a brutal division, and you got to pick one team, and I think the one team that's going to win the division is the only team in the division that's going to hit their over win total. And we'll get to who I think is going to win the division in a little bit, and it's not the Cowboys. I just think they're not the greatest team on defense. I'm not the biggest fan of Zeke. I'm not the biggest fan of Mike McCarthy. I think he's just a really average coach. Dak coming back from injury, I'm a little nervous about it. They obviously had how many wins did they have? They had 6 wins last year with Dak after Dak getting hurt and playing a backup quarterback pretty much all year. They draw a pretty brutal straw right off the bat. Tomorrow they got to play the Bucs, in which they're over a touchdown underdog, so I don't see them winning that game. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Cowboys this year. I just think that if you're going to go over the win total in this division on one team, it's going to be who you think is going to win the division. And for some of you guys, I think it's probably going to be Dallas because they are the favorite to win the division. But for me, it's not going to be Dallas this year. I think they're beat up on the offensive line. Zach Martin has COVID now. But yeah, I just don't think they're not the traditional offensive line that we used to think about a few years ago when they were the best offensive line in football. But I'm just not a big Zeke fan. They do have good playmakers and wide receiver. I will give them that. But I'm not a huge fan of this team this year, and their defense is pretty trash. So, I'm taking the under on Dallas this year. I don't think they're going to be the division winners, and just how bad this division is, I don't even know if they'll make the playoffs. So that's my take on the Cowboys this year.
So, Chris, Rick brings up some good points, right? There's a lot of things to be negative about or bearish about with the Cowboys this year. You and I both picked the over. Again, a team that won 6 games last year, but they do have the second easiest strength of schedule in football. What do you like about the Cowboys? Why are you picking the over?
Well, I think you just called it out. Second easiest schedule in the NFL. Like Rick already pointed out, their division's pretty trash. They have a 31 win total throughout all 4 teams in the division. I believe it's the lowest in the NFL. They're going to have easy skating the whole year. Dak's back. That receiving core is probably, top 3 in the NFL. Zeke's back healthy. The offensive line, I know it's not as good as it used to be, but it's still way more put together than it was last year when they were literally just crawling through the season. So I'm taking the over on the 9. They had 6 wins last year without Dak. So if I had to bet one or the other, I'm betting the over on the 9, but I'm not super excited to bet this one. I had this labeled as over or maybe a no bet for me. But this division is so easy that you're going to get a couple of just cupcake wins. So I'm going over.
Yeah, I tend to fall with you. They're a better team with Dak than without. It's a team that limped through 6 wins last year. So is he worth 3 more plus they get an extra game? I'm going with the over as well. So I'm there with you. The next team on the slate is the Washington football team, Ron Rivera coach team, plug and play, Miami 2.0 with Fitz Magic. We are all taking the over at a Vegas line that is pegged at 8.5. So my guess would be, Rick, this has to be your pick for the division champion.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of Washington this year. They made the playoffs last year. They gave Tampa, the Super Bowl champions, a run for their money with basically like a.
Oh, the magic of the internet. We seem to have lost Rick. Chris, okay, you took the over as well. So the spotlight is back on you. Give me your 2 cents on the over.
Yeah, man, I like this bet a lot. We've already talked about how bad the division is, and the football team's defense is scary good, man. I think Chase Young is, I think he's in contention for defensive player of the year. That guy is just a mammoth of a man, and that defense looks, borderline unstoppable. So I know they're a hot fantasy pick for me this year, grabbing that the Washington defense. They added Ryan Fitzpatrick. You literally couldn't get worse quarterback play than they got last year. So I know it's only Ryan Fitzpatrick, but it's a big improvement from what they had. They added Curtis Samuel in free agency. Him opposite Terry McLaurin is going to be a really nice 1-2 wide receiver punch. And Antonio Gibson is a lot of people's favorite for breakout running back of the year. So you have a scary defense and you have a lot of ascending offensive players with Fitzmagic leading the charge. I'm going over on 8.5.
Yep, I agree with both of you, Rick. We lost you there for a second, so apologize to that. We pivoted to Chris, but I do think, much like Chris kind of laid out, it's a team that is basically stocked from where they were last year. The defense is arguably one of the best in the division. And I do think their defensive front, the 4 guys up front, may be the most dynamic defensive linemen in the game. That group is special. It's headlined by Chase Young. And again, we touched on it, in a trash division where they played with, less than half of a quarterback all year and won 7 games. So I'm with both of you. I'm taking the over on the 8.5. It's one of the better bets, I think, in the lineup in the NFC. Stumbling down the division a little bit farther, we come across the New York Giants. And again, we've got some discrepancy on the over and the under. This is a team that won 6 games last year. We are getting an extra game this year. Vegas has pegged them to win 7. Chris, you took the over. Rick and I took the under. Tell me why we're wrong.
Not super thrilled to pick the over, but I have a hunch with the Giants this year. So they won 6 games last year. They only need to improve 1 to hit the 7 mark and push on the over. My theory here is no Saquon last year. Daniel Jones, I don't think he could really play worse than he did last year. He barely threw more touchdowns than interceptions. So you add 1 year for him to evolve. You get Saquon back. You add Kenny Galladay in free agency, and you draft Kadarius Toney in the first round. The Giants, oddly enough, it feels weird to say it, kind of have too many offensive weapons. It's odd to say because they went from like a wasteland to now it's like, well, I don't even know how they're going to split up their targets because they have 6 guys who need the ball. So, and that defense is like so underrated. Bradbury, their corner, was like, I refuse to start a receiver in fantasy football that's going against James Bradbury. So the defense is very underrated. I think they were 9th in the NFL last year in points per game, and the offense can't get any worse. They were 2nd to last in points per game last year. So if you're telling me I only have to gain 1 win and I get Saquon back, arguably the best athlete at running back in the NFL, I'm going over.
Rick, Chris brings up some good points, man. There's definitely some highlights. He's obviously very bullish on the outlook for the Giants. You and I both took the under this year. They're getting Saquon back. There's not a lot else that's changed. Why are you taking the under?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I'm high on Washington, and I'm sorry I got disconnected earlier, but I just wanted to say that I think Ron Rivera is in a tier on his own as far as a coach in this division. I think he's way better than any of the other 3 coaches in the division. But yeah, I mean, the Giants I'm just not a fan of. I mean, they bring back Saquon. Okay, how healthy is he going to be? Is he going to be able to stay on the field? Like, I don't know. I just think that, like Chris said, they have just too many mouths to feed on the offense. I think that's just going to be kind of a cluster F on offense this year. Daniel Jones does not have any excuse to not play well this year. He has every offensive weapon at his disposal this year. So I need to see it from him this year. If he does take that next step, I would not be surprised if they're competing for the division, but I just don't think he can take that next step. And I'm just so high on the Redskins or on Washington this year that I just can't see the Giants hitting their over. Maybe we're underrating this division a little bit, but for me, Giants are way under for me.
Yeah, I'm taking the same as you. I think part of it is I do think Washington is up and coming. I think they're much better with Fitz magic back behind center versus where they were last year, basically trying to fit Alex Smith and anybody they could who was healthy into the lineup. So I like that. The return of Dak Prescott, something has to give. So much like you, where I'm not 100% that 7 is a good or bad number. They were just by luck the team that got demoted. Speaking of being demoted, last in the division last year, picked to only win 6.5 games this year. The fighting Philadelphia Jalen Hurts, a team that lacks any, characteristics or anything to speak of other than Jalen Hurts. All of us have taken the under. Rick, why don't you tell me why you do not like 6.5 and why the Philadelphia Eagles will win less than 6.5 games?
I mean, in all honesty, I don't really know what the Eagles are going to be this year. I don't know much about their coach. I don't know much about their playmakers on offense. I mean, can Devontae Smith transfer over what he had in Alabama to the pros? I have no clue. I'm just think the safe bet is the under here. Would it be surprising to me if they hit the over? No, not really. But Jalen Hurts, I guess they're trying to build him up as like Lamar Jackson 2.0. So we'll see how that turns out. I'm not a fan of their backfield and Miles Sanders. I'm not a fan of their tight end game now. It's just kind of weak. Their defense was pretty shitty last year. I just don't think they added enough pieces to get better on defense. They're not a good getting pressure on defense. They lost Jason Peters, who was arguably one of the best offensive linemen, so he's not there anymore. So yeah, I'm just not a fan of the Eagles this year. I think they're going to be competing for the bottom of the division this year, and they're going to have struggle beating the likes of the Cowboys and Washington this year.
Chris, Rick hit it on the head. They're going to need Hurts to play like Lamar Jackson 2.0 if they want to win some football games. Tell me why you're taking the under.
So I'm taking the under here because I did take the over on all 3 of the other teams. So I feel like I almost had to take the under by default because I would no bet this one because I feel like the range of outcomes for the Eagles is so wide, right? If the Eagles won, if Jalen Hurts played like some people think he can play and they win 10 games, I don't think we're going to really be surprised. They have Devontae Smith, Heisman Trophy winner. They have Jalen Reagor at receiver, who was a first-round pick last year. They have Miles Sanders, who was a second-round pick 2 years ago that showed flashes. Their defense, shows up from time to time in games. I think that their range of wins is honestly 2 to 10. So this is a no bet for me, but if I was forced, I'd take the under. I think Rick nailed it that we really don't know. This team could end up anywhere. I'm kind of excited to see what we get out of them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this division falls. Obviously, the winner of the division, which was Washington. I think they had 7 wins last year. They had a losing record and made the playoffs. But to Rick's point, they made a run. They played well in big spots, despite the fact that they didn't have premier quarterback play, which this league is driven by quarterback play. So it speaks to how good their defense is. I think there's a lot of questions around the Cowboys, the Giants as well. And to me, the Eagles, they just lack any kind of substance, to your point, Chris, that I can hang my hat on and say, this is what this team's going to have to do to win football games. So I, like the two of you, will be taking the under. As we transition over to the NFC North, the perennial favorite in this division is obviously the Green Bay Packers, but a lot has happened with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers this year. It was just kind of the story of the offseason was the drama that happened between the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. I looked for a good period of time that he was going to end up being on somebody else's team at the beginning of the season. Obviously, that didn't happen. Everyone comes back. It's a team that won 13 games last year. It's a 17-game season this year. Not much else has changed in the division, but we are all taking the over. So, Chris, tell me why you like the Packers at plus 10 wins.
I like it because that line has to be wrong. I cannot for the life of me understand why this over-under is 10. I am going to put money on this, and probably pretty good money. I don't see how this team wins less than 10 games. There's no way they go 9-8 or worse. Aaron Rodgers, I mean, I think there's a lot of, feel-good story in here too. Aaron Rodgers is coming back, and he wants to give 2 middle fingers to the world and to the NFL. This is his last ride. They just re-signed Aaron Jones. Devontae Adams, it's probably his last year in Green Bay too. That guy is absolutely unreal and wants a huge payday. He's already talked about it. Defense, not great last year. Had a really hard time against tackling running backs, the simplest of things. I love to play running backs against Green Bay, but coming off 13 wins, an extra game, they scored the most points in the NFL last year. You got the narrative of Aaron Rodgers. I am all freaking in on the over. There's no way this goes under 10.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think it's a misprice, like we talked about, at least the way that I felt with the Steelers in the AFC when we did the AFC show. That just seems like the wrong line. 10 wins, this team could sleepwalk their way to 10 wins, especially in division, especially with everyone coming back and all the intangibles that you touched on. So I am with you. Rick is also with you on the over. Bumping down to the next one, we've got the Minnesota Vikings. Vegas has them at 9 wins, 1 win behind the Packers. This was one of the tougher ones for me, but we all chose the under. Rick, why do you like the under with the Vikings this year?
Yeah, it was a tough one for me too. I just personally think that the Packers are the class of this division, and I think they're going to run away with it. So I think the under is the play for the other teams in this division. Personally, the Vikings, they're kind of a weird situation. They have great playmakers on offense with Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, but Kirk Cousins is Kirk Cousins. He is who he is, who we think he is. He's just not. He's just an average, middle of the road quarterback. They had really tough time getting sacks last year. They are getting Danielle Hunter back this year, so maybe that'll help ratchet up the pressure a little bit for them on defense. But it's just weird seeing how last year they couldn't stop anyone with Mike Zimmer, head coach, who is a renowned, great defensive mind. And I just don't know if they added enough pieces to play well on defense. Yes, they signed Harrison Smith to a huge contract, and they're getting Danielle Hunter back. So if they can actually go back to being like a Mike Zimmer kind of defense, I could see them competing in this division. But they're just kind of a blah team for me. I just think they're going to get swept by the Packers this year, and I just don't think they have enough in them to get to an over-under win total of 9. So I'm just not a huge fan of the Vikings this year. I just think they're just kind of a blah team for me.
Yeah, it's funny. Chris mentioned, range of outcomes with teams. For me, the Vikings are one of those teams where I'm not really sure. Are they a 5-win team? Are they a 14-win team? A lot of it hinges on how Cousins plays. If he plays like the guy they signed and paid all the money to, they could be a very good team. They have weapons at running back. They've got a good defense, at least the core there. So there's a lot that you can be bullish about, but they've basically underperformed. So I don't see much changing this year. We all take the under. I think we're all in agreement there. The next team in the division, Vegas has its 7.5 wins, was the other playoff team from this division last year. It's the Chicago Bears. Defense comes back. They go out and get their QB1 in the draft. This is, the post Mitch Trubisky era. They go and draft the kid from Ohio State, Justin Fields, and everybody's really wondering what is going to happen at the quarterback position. They have a very difficult schedule this year, and within our group, we've got some contention. Chris, you and I took the over on the Chicago Bears this year. Tell me why you like the over with the Bears.
So part of the reason I like the over with the Bears is I'm off the Vikings this year. Their defense was extremely leaky last year, and I think their time is up. I think the writing's on the wall that Cousins is gone after this year, and I think not that they're in tank mode. I just think they're going to post like 6 wins this year. So that's one of the reasons I like the Bears, and I also think the Bears win total hinges on Justin Fields. So if he plays like he's been playing in the preseason, which he looks like an absolute captain of the game. He's Russell Wilson-esque. Looks like he's controlling the tempo of the game. And honestly, even if Dalton plays the first couple of weeks, he's still an upgrade over what they had at QB last year. So they had 8 wins last year. You have an extra game and you only need to post 7.5, and you might have, the next big thing at QB on your roster. David Montgomery is coming back. You have Allen Robinson. Darnell Mooney is ready to take that next step at wide receiver 2. Tariq Cohen's back from his ACL tear. Cole Kmet's an ascending tight end. I just like this offense more than the average person, so I'm going over pretty easily.
Rick, you like the under. Both Chris and I grabbed the over for a lot of the same reasons. There's components here to be excited about with the Bears. Obviously, Chris nailed it. It hinges on how Fields plays. If he plays like the guy that everybody thinks he can be, this could be the surprise breakout team in the NFC this year. Why did you take the under?
Mainly because I don't think Justin Fields is going to be what we think he's going to be.
A great reason.
Last year, I think he's going to need a little bit more time than like 1 year to develop for what I've seen from Justin Fields. Last year in the championship game, Alabama, who has one of the best defenses you can imagine, that, I mean, it's comparable to an NFL defense as you can get, made him look so pedestrian in the national championship game that I just can't see him going up against an NFL caliber defense and just lighting them up. I just don't see it for some reason. He's been playing great in the preseason against the 2s and the 3s. I mean, maybe a couple starters here and there, but I want to see him play a full game, a couple games against like NFL caliber defenses. I would have loved to see him play this Sunday night against the Rams, because the Rams have like one of the best defenses in the NFL, and I would have loved to see what he does when you have Aaron Donald running straight up the gut against him. But I think they're doing the right thing in starting Andy Dalton in the first game. Let him go out there, go get killed in the first game, and then maybe bring in Justin Fields week 2. But I also think Charles Nagy is kind of an idiot. Like, I don't think they're going to do the right thing and bring him in sooner than they should to give a spark to that offense. I think they're going to wait for some reason to maybe week 6, week 7 to bring him in, instead of when they could bring him in week 2 against the Browns, who don't have the greatest greatest defense in the world. So I think it would be smart to bring him in. So I think it kind of hinges on that too. But I peg the Bears this year as like a 7-win team. I just don't like where they're going with this offense as far as maybe as Justin Fields is going to go. And I'm not a huge fan of Charles Nagy. They have a terrible kicking game. I do like Allen Robinson. I like Darnell Mooney. I like the pieces they have as far as fantasy spots go. But I do need to see their defense get a little bit better this year. They lost one of the Fuller brothers. I forget which Fuller brother it is, but they lost one of the Fuller brothers. He was a staple in their back end of their defense. So we'll see. They do have great pieces up front with Akeem Hicks and Khalil Mack to get to the quarterback. But can their defense carry them to 8 wins? I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I'm really interested in seeing what this team does. They're like a 7-win team for me. So I'm just going to lean on the under there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've both we've all talked about it. This team is really going to come down to quarterback play and whether or not Andy Dalton can be the fill-in that allows them to win football games, or if they decide to go with Fields and he plays like everybody hopes that he can play. Nagy is an offensive mind. He came from KC, where he was the offensive coordinator previously. So it's a team that wants to run and gun and score points. I don't know if Fields is the guy. I'm more bullish on it, which is why I chose the under. Speaking of quarterback play and changes we have, in my opinion, the worst team in the division, and Vegas agrees with me in the Detroit Lions. 4.5 wins is what Vegas has them pinned at. We all took the under, and I think there are clear reasons why we took the under. But I'm curious, Chris, give me your 2 cents on why the Detroit Lions will win less than 4.5 games this year.
Yeah, I think they're in contention for the first pick of the NFL draft, along with Houston, maybe Jacksonville again, maybe the Eagles. But yeah, man, they're pretty bad. They won 5 games last year with Matt Stafford, and now they're going down to Jared Goff. Jared Goff is someone we all believe was only good. I'm not even going to say good. He was only serviceable because of Sean McVay. So we're about to see Jared Goff join this, dumpster fire of an offense. I think it's going to be pretty ugly. I'll be surprised if they get to 3 wins. They have a couple decent fantasy football pieces that I like because they actually have a decent offensive line. So when you have a good O-line, things just kind of tend to happen when you don't expect it. So I'm definitely taking my shares of DeAndre Swift, and I love TJ Hawkinson this year as a breakout tight end, but they're not getting to 5 wins. They just don't have enough talent on this roster. And you can tell just by the way that, who they're signing, they're not even trying to compete. They're looking forward to 2022 already.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, team dumpster fire, new coach, new quarterback, new philosophies, brand new systems. It's going to be a rebuilding year. I don't think Jared Goff lasts more than a year in this system. I think he'll be somewhere else after this year. So I think this is a team that could go winless. This arguably is the worst team in all of football. There is another team in the next division that we'll talk about that I think could contend, which I'm actually surprised at how many wins they have picked by Vegas. But I'm with you guys. I think that Detroit is terrible, and if they win,
their head coach is psychotic. Have you seen the guy?
The worst press conference demeanor. I mean, his original press conference, he looked like a cocaine addict going through withdrawals. Like he was sweating profusely, and he was spouting every mannerism and coachism that you could possibly think of, rather than answering questions and talking about philosophy. So
I mean, I get it. That could work for a little bit. Like people like to say players like to run through a wall for him, but how long is that going to go for? Is he going to do it for a whole season? No, I think that runs its course after maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and they just they might come out and shock somebody this weekend and maybe win a game, their first game, and just be so fired up. But who knows? I mean, I don't think so. They play San Francisco on Sunday, so that's a tough game for them. So we'll see. I'm not a fan of their coach. I think he's just a psychotic person who should not be an NFL head coach, to be honest with you.
You mean you shouldn't be saying at a podium to bite people's kneecaps off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see. I felt like I was watching a press conference from 1968, and that's where he was broadcasting from. Hey, the new 1968 Detroit Lions head coach. That's how we talked. So to your point, I just there's a lot to be left desired there, and I think that franchise is in full rebuild mode. And the first piece they needed to get rid of was Stafford, and it was because they just couldn't put it together around him. So they're trash. Let's move on.
Yeah.
NFC South, the defending Super Bowl champions, also pegged to be the division champions this year, even though they were not last year. They're a team that won 11 games. Vegas has them pegged at 12 wins this year. We all are taking the over. Rick, why do you like Tampa Bay plus 12?
What's not to like about the Bucs this year? They are returning every single player on offense this year, on the team this year. Every single starter is coming back on defense. Pretty much their entire offense is coming back. They added Giovanni Bernard to the backfield, who's going to be a favorite of Tom Brady. Obviously, they have great receivers in Mike Evans and Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin. What's not to like about the Bucs? They're the class of the NFC. I think Tom Brady is a year older, but he just seems like he just gets a year younger every year. Who knows with this guy? He's just taking some supplements over the counter that are just making him look younger and younger every year. But their defense is ferocious. They made Patrick Mahomes look pedestrian in the Super Bowl last year. I can't see how with an extra game this year that they don't get to their over win total this year. They're so damn good, and I think it's going to be down to them and the Packers, and then maybe another team that comes out of the NFC West that's going to be competing for the NFC Championship this year. But I definitely can't see them losing before the NFC Championship game. I think they're going to get there for sure. I'm a huge fan of the Bucs this year. But yeah, Brady has some favorite targets, and we see it every year with Tom Brady. He's just such a good quarterback. He knows how to manage an offense, and I love Bruce Arians as a head coach also.
Yeah, a lot to like with the Buccaneers. I mentioned a lot in the AFC shows that aspect of continuity. The fact that they do have a coach who has had success bringing back all the same guys, all the same system. And again, strength of schedule, they have, the third easiest strength of schedule in the NFL, and they're returning the 7th best defense and the 2nd best offense. So to me, that's a recipe for over. We all agree. Let's move on. The returning champions from this division were actually the New Orleans Saints. We enter a new era of football in New Orleans where we're post Drew Brees, right? He was the guy that raised New Orleans after Katrina. And so there's no more Drew Brees. So we start the Jameis Winston era, and a lot of people don't really know. We are all taking the over. Vegas has them at 9 wins. I think it's mispriced. I think that they are giving them too deep of a discount because they do not have Drew Brees. A lot comes back. Continuity in the coaching staff. Chris, tell me why you like the over.
I mean, this is one of my top 3 bets in the NFC pretty easily. I don't understand this price here because they have a top 10 easiest strength of schedule. They had the number 5 offense last year and the number 3 defense. Okay, so Drew Brees is leaving, but Drew Brees wasn't the Drew Brees of 5-6 years ago. Jameis Winston's shown really well in the preseason. I just don't see how Vegas expects a 12-win team to go down to 9 with an extra game because you lost a 40-year-old quarterback. It just doesn't. I understand he's Drew Brees, but I don't think they're losing that much by going from Brees to Jameis. And the defense is one to be reckoned with. Mike Thomas was out last year. So, him being out for the first 6 weeks this year, at least, is not really an excuse why the total's any different. So I'm easily taking the over, one of my top 3 favorite bets in the NFC.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you've said. The other big thing to me is the last place that Jameis Winston was a starter was in Tampa Bay. Yes, he had weapons, but he had no running game, and their defense was not good. That is not the case in New Orleans. He has everything that he needs to be successful, including a head coach with a proven system. He's had a year in that system to see how it's run and how it should be played. Plus, they have Taysom Hill if they want to change things up. So to me, this is a team that is primed and ready. And if they were in any other division other than the NFC South, they'd probably be the favorite to win the division. Moving on. And the next team in the division is the Carolina Panthers. They've made some changes. Brand new quarterback. Sam Darnold leaves New York, comes down to Carolina. Vegas has this team pegged at 7.5 wins. I think they are much worse than that. But Rick, you have them pegged for the over. Why are you picking them for the over this year?
They're my surprise team this year. I think they're going to be competing for a wild card spot this year for sure. I'm really excited for them to get CMC back. They added some good pieces on offense with Terrace Marshall in the draft. I think he's going to be a playmaker. They added some pieces on defense with J.C. Horn in the draft. I think he's going to be a playmaker on defense. I'm a fan of Matt Rule at head coach. I think that this team is going to surprise a lot of people this year. I think they're going to be a really good team. We saw that defense step it up toward the second half of the season last year, and they were all very, very young guys, and they're all a year older, and they're getting better as a team. Now, a lot of this does hinge on Sam Darnold. Is he is he going to play like he did in New York, or is he going to play like as drafted at like the 4th overall pick? I'm not really sure about that, but he does have the weapons around him with DJ Moore, with Robbie Anderson, with CMC in the backfield to show us that he can be that top 5 pick of the NFL draft. And I think he's going to step it up. I think he needed a change of scenery from New York. And I think Matt Rule is going to coach him up, and he's going to have a great season. And I definitely am pegging the Panthers for an 8-9 I'm not gonna say 10-win season, but like 8-9 win season for sure. And I think they're gonna be a wild card team this year.
You make some compelling points there. Both Chris and I took the under. Chris, what do you have to say about that? I mean, Rick brings some good things. They have components. Rule is one of the better, well thought of coaches in the NFC. Darnold looked good in flashes in New York, and he's arguably gone to a much better team with maybe the most dynamic running back other than Alvin Kamara. But he is in a really, really tough division with maybe the two best teams in the NFC. Why are you taking the under?
Yeah, I picked under, but this is a no bet for me. The Panthers almost they're like Eagles-esque for me. I think their range of outcomes is really wide. I think they could win 3 or 4 games, and I think they could win 10 games. They're getting CMC back this year. They drafted a really good receiver in the draft. And Rick made a great point on the defense. It was a point I want to make as well. In 2020, 2 drafts ago, they drafted 100% defensive players in the draft. They drafted like 11 defensive players. They had so many draft picks. And then their first round pick this year, they took JC Horn. So their last 11 or 12 draft picks have been all defensive players. And they are just so young on defense, and I think they still finished around the middle of the NFL in defensive points allowed last year. And Rick nailed it. The second half of the year, they were just, you could see them growing as a unit. I think this year that defense could be top 15, top 12, and I think they might shock a couple people. But I'm sitting here defending the over, and I picked under. But anyway, this is a no bet for me. I'm so torn. When I think a team has a really large range of outcomes, because of Darnold, because of the young defense, because Matt Rule's still getting his feet wet there, this is anywhere from 3 to 10 wins. I don't want to touch bets like that. So this is a no bet for me.
Yeah, you make a good point. The 2020 draft for this team, they went all up front with defensive line and basically the back four, trying to shore up their depth on both ends. We know if you put pressure on the quarterback, you can stop the run. If you have a dynamic cornerback who can shut down half the field, that really limits what offenses can do. That is obviously what they're trying to do with personnel. So I hear the argument either way, and I understand why. I'm taking the under simply because of the Saints and the Buccaneers. They're playing against the two best teams in the NFC. They're going to have to play each of those teams twice. That takes a toll on you. So I've got to go one way or the other. So that is why I took the under. Speaking of unders, the Atlanta Falcons round out the basement here. They are also pegged by Vegas at 7.5 wins. So we've got a division where the top is headlined with 12, the bottom is 7.5. I think other than maybe the next division that we'll cover in the NFC, it is the one that has the most wins in terms of all 4 teams. We all chose to take the under on the Falcons. Could be just the range of outcomes because of where we're picking other teams to fall out in this division. But Chris, why are you taking the under on the Falcons?
Absolutely love it. This is so Saints, Falcons, and what was my other one? Packers are my 3 favorite. The Falcons won 4 games last year and they lost Julio Jones. They have no resemblance of a running game. Matt Ryan's a year older. I don't understand why Vegas would want them to win 4 more games to hit the over. I mean, they are not an ascending team in my point of view. They're flat. They have no identity. I don't know what they are anymore. So I cannot look at the Falcons and get excited about anything. At least, years ago they had Julio and Calvin Ridley ascending. Matt Ryan, was still 33, 34 years old. They're just not it anymore. I think people see the name. They play in a dome. They're high flying offense. It's not the same team. Give it up, man. This is a smash under. Such an easy bet.
Yeah, Rick, any other thoughts on the Falcons and the under?
I like the hire of Arthur Smith. I think he's a pretty
that's
good, brilliant mind. But it's a different offense than Tennessee, so I don't know exactly how he's going to translate to him. And honestly, if I didn't just look at their depth chart like 2 seconds ago, I don't think I could name a single player on their defense. Their defense just can't stop anyone, and just I don't think they have the weapons on offense to get in shootouts week in week out and win games. I just think they're just going to have a lot of high scoring games. I would bet a lot of overs on their games this year because they're going to give up a lot of points. They're probably going to score a lot of points too, but just having such a shitty defense, I just can't see them winning any games this year, winning many games.
Yeah, I think Chris hit it on the head too with a team that's either ascending or descending. They take arguably their most marketable star in Julio Jones, the guy that's been the face of the franchise the last couple of years here. They part ways with him. They have a new coach in town. Feels like the organization is thinking rebuild. They have an aging quarterback. There's just too many things that just say this is not a team moving in the right direction. All right, so we move on to the NFC West, the last one in this in the division. Last year's champions, the Seattle Seahawks. Arguably, a lot of people felt like this was the best division in football. It is very, very competitive, strength of schedule-wise, outside of the NFC North. All 4 of these teams are playing in what I would call the better half of, or the tougher half of the strength of schedule. Seahawks come back. They have a lot of things here, but the team that Vegas thinks is going to lead the way is the Rams at 10.5 wins. The Rams won 10 games last year. We're getting an extra game, like we've said, over and over again. This is a team that plays a very dynamic defense, looked extra special in spurts, and a year or 2 ago was the best defense in football. They've made an upgrade to the quarterback position, parting ways with Jared Goff and starting the Matthew Stafford era. Rick, why do you like the Rams at over 10.5 games?
I love the Rams this year. I think they're really, really going to take a step up this year. Getting Matt Stafford is so huge for them. I just think that Jared Goff was, like Chris said earlier, just as serviceable as he could be under Todd McVay. Sean McVay, sorry, let's call him Todd McShay. Sean McVay. But yeah, I think I have all the respect in the world for Sean McVay. I think he's going to make Matthew Stafford who he was supposed to be as a number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. And with the weapons that they have on the outside with Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. And I mean, yeah, the Cam Akers injury hurts a little bit, but Darrell Henderson's going to be fine in the backfield. And then they got Sony Michel too. Their defense is pretty damn good with Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. This is I think probably the best division in football. I'm a little biased towards the AFC North, but definitely the best division in my opinion in the NFC. I think they're going to easily hit their over this year for sure.
Yep, all 3 of us picked the over here. I think for many of the same sentiments that you outlined, Rick, you made very good points. I think the biggest thing to me is the upgrade in the quarterback position. You get arguably one of the better arms in all of football with one of the best offensive minds as a coach. I think that's a recipe to win a lot of games this year. Another reason why is the next team in this division, the San Francisco 49ers. Vegas also has them pegged at 10.5 wins. This is the team that won 6 games last year, was plagued with injuries, went through a carousel at quarterback, at receiver. The defense looked great in flashes. They lose their D coordinator. We all take the under. Chris, tell me why you like the under on the 49ers on less than 10.5 games.
Man, this was a hard bet for me, but I went under. You had to feel for the Niners last year. I mean, every single week, it's like they weren't even losing one player; they were losing 2 and 3, and it was just sad to watch. You know, from a fantasy football perspective, and at a point, like a personal perspective, you just thought, like, well, what is in the air in San Fran? This shit is crazy. But yeah, I'm going under because this division is an absolute bloodbath. I mean. There's 39.5 wins total between the 4 teams. That's almost 10 wins a team. That's what Vegas thinks. So something's got to give. So for me, it's the team with the unproven quarterback situation. You have Garoppolo probably starting the beginning of the year, and then we don't know who Trey Lance is. He's 21 years old, and he didn't play football last year. So going from 6 wins all the way up to 11 to hit the over, I know they're riddled with injuries, but you're not selling me in this division that they're gaining 5 wins to hit the over. So my money is on the under 10.5.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. We all agree the under for less than 10.5. I don't see how they get there in this division. If they were playing in even in the NFC South, maybe, but this division is way too stacked. Even the team that Vegas has right below them, the very next team in the division, the defending division champions, Seattle Seahawks, who arguably have the best home field advantage in the NFC, they return everybody on offense. Defensively, they've lost some key pieces. It's not the Legion of Doom. This is Russell Wilson's team. It's a totally different version of the Seattle Seahawks than what competed against the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl here 5-6 years ago. I actually like the Seahawks the most in this division. We all agree in the over here. My assumption is part of that is because we all agree in the under on the San Francisco 49ers. But Rick, why do you like the Seahawks at +10?
This is my favorite bet besides the Packers over. I just think the Seahawks are damn good, and it's not because of anything special outside of Russell Wilson. I think it's just Russell Wilson. I think I have all the faith in the world in him. I think he's an absolutely wonderful quarterback, and he can overcome bad defenses. He can overcome bad coaching by Pete Carroll to get to this over. I think he just carries the team on his shoulders so well that, I mean, even with a lack of, weapons, in the backfield, like Chris Carson is okay, serviceable, but he's not really helping him out in the run game. But I just think he just puts it on his shoulders. He's going to hit Tyler Lockett. He's going to hit DK Metcalf, and he's just going to carry this team on his shoulders like he does every year to the over 10 wins. Them hitting 11, 12 wins like every year under Russell Wilson is like pretty much a staple in the NFL. And I just think they're going to do it again this year. I like Jamal Adams on defense. I like some of the other pieces that they have on defense with Bobby Wagner at linebacker. He's one of the best linebackers in the NFL. Pete Carroll can be an idiotic coach at times. Like they say, let Russ cook. They should just let him cook. Like, don't overthink it. Don't be cute. Let him do his thing, and he's just going to carry you to another playoff appearance for sure.
Yeah, Russell Wilson, much like, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank, quarterback for the Green Bay Packers.
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers. Pencil in 10 wins, either guy.
Yeah.
Thank you for that very much. But yeah,
absolutely.
He's a special cat. And when you have a guy who has the ability that he does, that understands the game as well as he does, short of him being injured, if you take Russell Wilson off this team, they might be a 5-win team. With Russell Wilson, they're a 12-win team. It's as simple as that. He is the difference between winning and losing for that franchise. Speaking of winning and losing, rounding out the last team in this division and in the NFC that we have not talked about, of course, we have a point of contention on the over and under. I know, Chris, you made it that it may be a no bet for you because you feel like the line is appropriate. They're playing in a tough division. They have an offensive-minded coach. They have one of the league's newest stars at quarterback. You took the under. Chris, why'd you take the under? I know it's a no bet, but give me the case for the under.
Yeah, I'm not touching this. I feel like they're another team that has a pretty wide range of outcomes. And I think a lot of these over-unders in this division kind of depend on the 49ers, right? Because Vegas thinks they're gaining 4 or 5 wins. So where's it coming from? It has to come from somewhere, likely in the division, right? So Kyler Murray, absolutely love the guy. Absolute stud. I have him on so many fantasy teams. I can't even count. I'm drafting him over Lamar Jackson this year, which is hard to say if I'm a Ravens fan. But yeah, he's a special kid. Cliff Kingsbury, he's shown like he has a good future as a head coach. Their defense actually was surprisingly good last year. I think they were 12th in the league in points per game. That offense is going to score. They even added some pieces on offense. They added the corpse of AJ Green. You never know. that could be a nice surprise. And they added one of my favorite college players, Rondale Moore, to take over that role in the slot, maybe a little bit out of the backfield. A lot of nice, razzle dazzle pieces, but like I'm just absolutely in love with the Rams and the Seahawks this year. So something's got to give. Not every team in this division can win 10 games. So sorry, Cardinals, you're it. I'm not betting this, but I would go under with a gun to my head.
So Chris brings up some good points. This one was a tough one for me too, Rick, but like Chris mentioned, I'm deducting the wins directly from the San Francisco 49ers and placing them in the Cardinals bucket. I took the over with you. Tell me why the over is a good bet.
I mean, it's a tough one also for me. I mean, I think the number's appropriate. I think they're going to be right around that number. Like we said, I'm a huge fan of the Rams and the Seahawks in this division. I mean, what's not to like about the Cardinals? Kyler Murray is so exciting to watch. They have one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver in football, in DeAndre Hopkins, and they added JJ Watt on defense, who could have a resurgence in his career on defense and getting after the quarterback on defense. So Cliff Kingsbury is weird at times. He makes some weird decisions at times. He likes to, for some reason, get down to the goal line and kick a field goal on fourth down for some reason. I don't know why when you have Kyler Murray at quarterback, but I can't tell you how many times they get to like 4th and 1 on the goal line and they kick a field goal. It just doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, and maybe if he changes and gets a little bit more aggressive this year, that they can score some more points. But they have an unsure situation in the backfield with Chase Edmonds and James Conner kind of splitting time, but I do like the Cardinals this year. I'm a fan of their offense, and even though you can't have on all overs in a division, but since I'm going under on the 49ers, it's just kind of I'm just going to take the over on the Cardinals here.
Yeah, you guys bring up a good point. This might be one of those where Vegas has hit it on the head, and where it ends up, who knows? I'm calling them Team Cotton Candy. A lot of flash, a lot of things to be excited about, a lot of flavor. I just don't know if there's any substance. So it's a tough line to bet. It's very difficult. I took the over with you, Rick, just because I think the 49ers are more trash than people want to say. And I think the Cardinals will be the direct beneficiary of the fact that the 49ers will win less than 10 games. So that takes us through the NFC. You guys are going to continue to do some stuff on fantasy football with a weekly show. Rick, is there anything you want the people to know about the weekly show and what they should expect in terms of fantasy football this year?
I think in our weekly show, we're just going to kind of recap what we saw the previous week, obviously go over some injury stuff and what our outlook is on the upcoming week. And I mean, I'm going to kind of just do my hosting job and let Chris, the expert, talk about it. He's the fantasy football expert. We play in like 5 leagues together. So, I mean, we'll be talking about our fantasy football leagues, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to get the season rolling. I can't believe we're going to have real football tomorrow. I'm excited for this game tomorrow. I actually think it's going to be a little bit closer than people are thinking. Bucks are favored by 8, so I think it's going to be a little bit closer. I think the Cowboys are going to give a run for their money tomorrow, but I think the Bucks are going to still win the game. But I'm excited to have football back. I'm excited to be in Vegas on Sunday, to watch all the games on Sunday, be able to bet on these games on Sunday. So I'm super pumped about that. Chris, are you excited for the season?
Yeah, man. I feel like tomorrow's Christmas morning. I don't even want to go to sleep tonight. I'm so excited to watch a game tomorrow night, while packing for Vegas and watching, defending Super Bowl champions show out on Thursday night. So excited for that, and excited to talk fantasy football with you every week. Players that, we're buying or selling or, looking to pick up or drop. It's going to be good times. So hopefully Tony can join us for some of those too.
As long as there's enough space with all of the information that you guys are going to be covering, I'm always down to participate. I do have one question for you, and it's unrelated to fantasy football, but it is related to your trip. Will you be bringing enough money to bail Rick out of jail if he gets arrested?
Well, it depends if I hit my parlay on college football Saturday.
Tony, before we go, I know this is not a golf show. We didn't have a golf show this week, but I got to ask you what you think of the Ryder Captain picks today. I mean, I saw it this morning. I was pretty shocked by Scotty Scheffler being picked to the Ryder Cup team. I got to have your take on that. I don't think he should have been picked, but what's your take on that?
Yeah, Scheffler, I think, was the point of contention. He was in a running of guys. I shouldn't say that I'm not a Scotty Scheffler fan, but I never bet on the guy. He always plays well. He's a perennial top 15 player, but there's just not a lot of substance there for me. I really don't know why that pick was made when there were other guys out there that seemed like legitimate picks. Yeah, but
who would you have went with? I want to hear. Tell me who you guys would have went with, like your next pick or two.
I probably would have gone. I probably would have gone with like Sam Burns or Kevin Na over Scotty Scheffler. I just can't believe they took somebody that hasn't won on the PGA Tour to play in the Ryder Cup. That's just baffling to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the obvious choice to me was Sam Burns. I thought Na was a close second. He played very well down the stretch, especially through the playoff season. But Burns was the guy to me. If you're going to take an up and comer, the next big guy in golf, to be on the team, a guy who fits the bill for the skill set that you need to play well at Whistling Straits. Sam Burns was the guy to me. It was an easy pick, and they chose Scheffler. And to me, it was the wrong pick. It just didn't make any sense.
I mean, you can make a case for Patrick Reed. I mean, obviously he's Captain America. I can't believe they left him off the team, but I just think he's created so much diversity in that locker room with everyone hating him so much that they just said, F you, you're not going to be on the team this year.
That, and the guy's coming off an ankle injury and double pneumonia. So to me, if you're ever going to have an opportunity to leave him off the team,
this is this year.
This is it. Like, you can say, hey, the guy's not 100%. We're trying to win this thing. So I
if
think
we win this year, we know the weakest link.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. I'm definitely excited for the Ryder Cup. Me and Tony are going to definitely do a show on the Ryder Cup, probably the week of the Ryder Cup. So we'll definitely look forward to that. I can't wait. I mean, it's like my favorite golf event of the year. So definitely excited for that. Definitely excited for football. A lot of exciting things coming up in September for sure.
Yeah, having football back in full swing without all of the caveats that we've had the last year is phenomenal. I'm excited for the season. I'm excited to hear you guys do your show. Like you mentioned, there's a ton of content. We're going to continue to do golf for the 5 or 6 people that care about that. Mike's going to continue to do the Buffalo-based shows, recapping what's happening with the Bills every week. You guys are going to be pumping out great stuff with fantasy football. So there's a lot to be excited about. So I remind all of you who are watching this to like, sub, and comment. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you turn on notifications. And we do get the giveaway away, whatever that may be. When we announce it, you'll be the first one to know. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Chris, Rick, thank you guys so much. Travel safe. Have fun. Don't do anything that I wouldn't do, which pretty much leaves you open to do whatever you want. And Rick, if you get arrested, don't call me, okay? I'm just saying.
Okay, you got
it. I will not be answering your phone call. Just so that out there. All right, fellas. That's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You guys have a good night. Safe travels, fellas.
Yeah.